Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to our webinar on the Mixed Use Development Guide. We're going to give everybody maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to get started here, and then we will jump right into the content that we have today. So we will see you here in just a sec. All right, I'm starting to see that attendee list trickle out a little bit here, so I think we will go ahead and get started. Off the bat, for folks who may not have attended one of our webinars before, you may raise your hand if you have a question by clicking the little hand icon there on the left. And we will also have Candy Klaus here monitoring the chat for us during the webinar as well. So if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to either raise that hand or drop that question in the chat there. We certainly like for these to be as interactive as we can make them, so don't be shy. I am your host today. My name is Daniel Dewar. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at IMPLAN. So I get the fun and engaging responsibility of talking to you all, our IMPLAN user base, and figuring out what we ought to be building, how we ought to be helping you guys create economic impact analyses faster, easier, and generally just taking care of IMPLAN as a platform. I'm also joined today by Candy Klaus, our VP of Customer Success and Education Services. Candy, tell the folks hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Fantastic. So a quick look at what we're going to be covering today. We are going to be spending a little bit of time on the Quick Start Guides as a whole, the Mixed Use Development Guide today, which is our topic. And then we'll be talking about how these items are actually going to be something that we carry forward for quite some time, and how folks out there as IMPLAN users can actually get involved in that effort and kind of what we're looking for. A quick moment on kind of what the Quick Start Guides initiative really is overall, and what we're aiming for. Again, for folks that might be newer users or haven't necessarily interacted with any of the guides that that we have out there today in the library. So folks that you know have either come to IMPLAN via economic IO analysis or you know other tasks that maybe are tangential within that sphere can probably relate to the statement that IMPLAN can often be like drinking from a fire hose. We have created a guides library to try to cut down a little bit on some of the uncertainty and maybe anxiety around getting used to formulating analyses within IMPLAN. So the guides themselves are, as the screen states, step-by-step use case specific walkthroughs for analysis creation. So they do put some guardrails on you, as far as constraints and things that you're going to need to kind of be aware of while you're using them. But what they do give you is a firm leg up compared to starting from scratch in terms of framing an analysis and starting on reporting when it comes to specific topics within IMPLAN. So each guide itself kind of covers the fundamentals of what IMPLAN's approach would really be for a given use case or a given topic, and we actually serve tips and tricks as well as problem space oriented copy throughout that experience. So you'll actually be getting kind of a bit of our support.com experience mixed in as you're using these things. For older IMPLAN users and folks that have been around for a little while, you might have experienced our project design guides. This has kind of taken that effort one step further and really taking something that used to live only in documentation and kind of creating a space where those documents can really come alive within the platform in the form of analyses that you can actually use, manipulate, and generate outcomes with. So you might be a candidate for guide users if you've ever said, what does output really mean in the scenario that I'm working with? Am I using the appropriate event type for my problem space? Am I configuring this correctly? We hear things like this from newer users and even users that might be returning to the platform, after a month or two hiatus all the time. Totally normal and certainly not unique to any one specific industry or area. They are things, like I said, that we hear constantly. So what are our goals here with the guides themselves? We're hoping to make adoption easier for newer users, and what we really want to put forward here is kind of a take on, hey, here's how IMPLAN would frame the core basis of an analysis for a given problem set. So when you're wondering, hey, how would you structure the events for something like construction and operations, or hey, how would I even approach a university impact, for instance? This is really the place to start. It's going to give you kind of an overall look at what events are involved. It's going to help you configure those events, in light of the data that you have, and it's really going to kind of jumpstart your reporting as well, as we'll see a little bit later on. And on the interactive front, so things that we had touched on briefly earlier, this is something that is ongoing. This is an effort that we've had going on basically for the entirety of the calendar year so far. This is really a library that is intended to be, for and by our users. So if there is anything that you are curious about seeing, or use cases you would like to see IMPLAN support in a space like this, please don't hesitate to reach out, product@implan.com. We would love to hear from you. With no further ado, I'm going to hop over to the IMPLAN platform itself, and we are going to, if I can get out of this full screen, we are going to take a look at what the guide looks like that we are showcasing today, which again is mixed use. So Candy or Michael, can I get a spot check just that we're able to see the whole screen?
Yes, indeed.
Sweet. So I'm going to start out here at the guides library. And for anybody who is curious about how to get there, I'll make my screen a pinch bigger because I know I'm on a big monitor. We have the guides carousel section here right on the main dashboard, and you're able to scroll through this to browse any of the guides, or you can hop right into the library with the button below. So we're going to be looking at mixed use development today, and some of the assumptions that underpin this guide include the fact that users are going to be responsible for quantifying how many of their housing developments residents would qualify as net new occupants. And we'll have a little blurb on that later as well, because it is one of the keys to, I would say, approaching this kind of analysis with some integrity. As far as really truly quantifying net new effects on their own. Things that we would want to see somebody bring to an analysis like this, and again, all of this is available as soon as you kind of hop in and take a look, hopefully so that you're not surprised as you get through the process. But again, we're looking for the number of units within the development that you are proposing per household income level, and we'll see how that materializes within the platform a little bit later. And then that to the point that I was making earlier, the percentage of residents that would be net new to the region as a result of that development. We'd like to know the annual construction costs at a minimum, just so that we can help quantify the construction aspect of this mixed use development impact. as well as the duration of construction. So how many years of construction are we talking about here? Other things, and you'll see kind of how we were able to fold these in, but other things you can bring to an analysis like this would be, employment headcount, construction payroll, and really the primary goal here is going to be to kind of set up the construction portion of the analysis first. And what we're really looking at there looks exactly like our existing construction analysis for those that have used either the construction and operations guide or the university impacts guide. So you'll see that that same methodology applied here. Within the guide itself, which we are now in, you can see that we kind of have region, construction, households, and results laid out here at the top. I'm going to say that my development is going to be in Mecklenburg County. Fun fact, that is where IMPLAN is located, if anybody hasn't yet visited us. And the first thing that I'm prompted with off the bat is the configuration for my construction event. So when we talked about the sort of duration of construction, that takes three forms for us primarily when we're approaching an analysis. That could be almost a non-time-based lump sum amount, or we might have construction that's the same every year. So let's say that I know that my construction cost is going to be $5 million for 2 consecutive years. I can set that up, or maybe I have $7 million in construction costs one year and $3 million in construction cost in a following year. All these options are available for us to configure. For the sake of time today, we'll just do lump sum. And if I want to access any support materials, I can do that right here along the right side in the support resources bar here and view any of the support.com material that is relevant to the problem space that we're dealing with. So all I have to do here is click next, and I'm presented with kind of our specification selection screen. So when users are specifying something in IMPLAN, that generally means picking an industry code or an IMPLAN code that's going to correlate to the problem that they're working with. Here for construction, we actually have a set of codes that are custom and specific to IMPLAN. So what we see here on the right for support resources is kind of a breakdown of the most common options here that you're going to want to generally use when you're approaching something like mixed use development. I think most relevant here for our example will probably be 58, construction of multifamily residential. So we'll scroll down the list here and select that. But if I wanted to, or maybe if I was dealing with our entire IMPLAN code list, I could use a text search up here above to find that in a more dense block of information. Once I've selected that, I can click next to move to the data entry piece. So here we're looking at the data that I have available that's going to describe my construction situation. So I'm presented with generally what are the 5 most common or popular data points that folks are bringing here, which the first one's going to be cost of construction. More often than not, this is what folks have when they're approaching an analysis like this. So if I'm unsure about how we're defining that within IMPLAN, I can click on more information and get a breakdown that says, hey, you're going to enter your complete cost of construction. This is the cost incurred each year that construction takes place. There are more inputs should you choose to use them. And we kind of keep these obscured just because most of the time for folks who are looking for an analysis at the granularity level that the guides provide, these are nice to have, but often not used. So we can expose those here if we want to, and you're welcome to use any or all of these. Really, they really just serve to make your analysis more robust. The more information you have, the more accurately IMPLAN can portray your economic impact situation. So for the sake of the example, we're just going to use cost of construction here. And I'm going to click next. And I'm going to say that we have, let's say, a $10 million development that we're going to be building next year. So $10 million in cost of construction there. And you'll see that I get presented with estimated values. So what this is actually using behind the scenes is our IIA event type. It's one of the more versatile and powerful event types that you can use within IMPLAN. However, it does have a fair amount of things to consider and configure when using it via the impacts interface. So within the guide space, we generally tend to try to configure most things for you. What you're seeing here are the other values that an IIA event considers when IMPLAN runs it. But all you need to do is really have a single value presented to it, and IMPLAN is actually going to estimate the rest of those values for us. So when we do that, we're actually able to edit these estimates if we choose to. So let's say that I know that the number of contractors working on my project is actually different than what IMPLAN is estimating it to be. I can come here and click on this little pencil and edit that directly within this analysis. And IMPLAN will factor that additional information in. Again, not required, but just ways in which you can refine the analysis that IMPLAN is going to be presenting here for you. So moving on to the households piece. So when we are talking about quantifying the impact of a mixed-use development, obviously construction is going to be a big economic driver and is kind of the bedrock for an analysis like this. The other portion of the analysis that we would want to potentially configure would be the residential aspect. So folks that are then going to occupy this development while basically after it's being built and really while that economic impact is going to be happening. So the way that we do that is by creating household income events based on the number of units of housing that we're creating within our analysis. So you can see that all the way from households lower than 15K in terms of income to households greater than 200K, we have a series of boxes here. So what we're going to do is specify the number of units within our development that fit in each bracket. So let's say I have 120 units of total housing that I'm going to be creating within my development. I'm going to say 20 of those units are households 30 to 40K. Maybe they're government subsidized low income housing, for instance, just for sake of example. And we'll do 100 units of 150 to 200K here in this box. There's also an income value box that I'm actually going to leave blank for both of these. So what that's going to do is it's going to use the average of this range. So for the 30 to 40K, it'll use $35,000 annually, for instance. If you want to specify an income value, you're more than welcome to. Again, the more specificity you can provide, the more accurately IMPLAN can portray your situation. But I'll leave that blank for now to let the IMPLAN system do its magic. So we'll be building our 120 unit development here with our split between low income housing designated units and then the rest being left for 150 to 200K annual income. I'm going to click next, and we're going to get asked what percentage of our households will be new to region as a result of this development. So this is where the onus is really on you, the user, to have done the due diligence to be able to back up the assertion that the folks that will be occupying the development that you're building are really truly going to be net new to your region. Because when we want to talk about the impact of our development, obviously we don't want to quantify people who are simply moving from somewhere else within our region, basically to within our region still. So we really want to make sure that we're talking exclusively about folks that this development is drawing to our region. Often this is 0% in many situations, and I think the amount of work involved to justify numbers that are non-zero is certainly not trivial. So it's just not something to approach lightly, is really the name of the game here. Let's say that I've done some of that work, and I'm going to say that 3% of the people occupying my new development are going to be from out of region, and I've ascertained that via survey studies and local migration trends, and I feel pretty confident backing that number up. What this is going to do is it's going to apply a scaling factor to the number of units that I've specified on the previous page, and it's basically going to say, hey, we said 100 units, we're really talking about 3 units, because once we actually quantify, okay, how many of those 100 units do we think are really going to be net new to the region, comes out to 3, you know, if I'm applying 3% here, just to give you a peek behind the math that is driving some of this. So I'm going to click next, and IMPLAN is going to be asking me for $1 a year, and this is really, you know, when we expect, in most scenarios, when we expect the event to occur. And 2024 here will be fine for the sake of example. So we get our graphic overview of the events that we've laid out here. So we have our construction event, which is again that multifamily residential for $10 million. And then we have 2 household income events with differentiated scaling factors that we've added here, one for 30 to 40K and one for that 150 to 200K. All right, moving right along. So I will name this Deminar test. I think I'm gonna have to answer or call it Deminar test 2, because I've run this for us so that we don't have to wait on the processing time associated with the analysis itself, which compared to previous iterations, especially for this version, a lot of these analyses are running a lot faster. So if you haven't poked around in the platform as of late, go check it out and see just how much faster stuff is running for you. We've made a lot of backend improvements as of late, and they have made a pretty big dent in some of our analysis runtimes. So yay, developers. Looking at the reporting that we get from you know, any guide for starters, but also some specific things that we've done for the mixed use development piece, you're going to see 3 slides. So you're going to see a slide that totals the construction impacts. So I can see here my cost of construction is portrayed. I see the jobs that my construction event supports, as well as their wages, the contribution to GDP, and the overall tax revenue for my region. And we get that in a small blurb as well. Same thing for household impacts. So again, you know, those are going to be generating a little bit over $500,000 in total output. You know, almost 3 annual jobs. And again, you know, we're not talking about a large swath of people here. So these numbers are pretty in line with what we would expect. And then specific to mixed use development, so this isn't in other guides yet, but we are talking about adding it. We have a slightly more granular tax breakdown than we typically include with some of this stuff. So looking at federal, state, county, sub-county special district, and sub-county general, all within the context of this, you know, report highlight slide structure. Usually this is something that you're gonna have to dig through the summary page to get to, but we've included it here for, you know, basically by request of a couple of our customers. So feel free to let us know via product@implan.com what you think of including things like this in the guide setting. This is also exportable, so you can download this to a PowerPoint format and use it as a reporting output, use it to help generate graphics, whatever you like. And actually, after this version, we are adding a verbose form detail report. So for those of you who haven't used any of our guides library items before, that looks like a Word document that is a text-based kind of recap of the highlights that you see here. That also includes some tabular outputs for folks that are looking to use that to kind of bootstrap some of the reporting that you might otherwise have to output into Excel and generate yourself. So that'll be coming from mixed use as well after this version. That is the guide and the report in a nutshell. I'm going to hop back into the deck for 2 seconds to talk about some next steps before we start taking questions. So again, everything that you've seen so far is out and available for all customers. This is not a paid feature or anything by any means. We are really just looking to simplify some of the use cases that we hear about most often from customers and try to support that again in this, you know, kind of guardrailed workflow. This is a library, again, like we were saying, that we are constantly looking to update and make changes and additions to. So Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you are curious at all or have comments, thoughts, questions, or concerns. product@implan.com. We would love to hear from you. The I would say the remainder of our 15 or so minutes here, we would love to open it up for questions. Candy, I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat yet, but please, let's open it up for folks to say what's on their minds.
Yeah, we do have a couple questions in here. So a couple my teammate Michael and I have answered in the question box. Just to go on the latest one, can you remind me how a job year is defined? Yeah, a job year is one person, one job, 1 year. So me sitting here at my desk at IMPLAN is one job year every calendar year. So in IMPLAN, we call things job years, and that's kind of how it's defined. So it may not be a full-time job. It may be part-time, but that's completely okay. Is it possible to use the guides with MRIO? Not at this moment, but Daniel, that is something we could put on our list.
Yeah, and that's actually it's something that the Enterprise Impact Guide actually does pretty well. But that is, I would say, more suited towards, I would almost term them more general impact. So it has a little bit more open-ended use to it than something like mixed-use development. However, if MRIO is your thing, definitely check out the Enterprise Impacts Guide. And then again, please reach out at product@implan.com because that is something that we are exploring adding a fair amount of tooling around here specifically. Looking at things like almost like a region building tool to try to simplify the process of building combined regions and things like that. So yeah, please drop us a line and let us know what else you might want to see in a space like that, and definitely give the Enterprise Impacts Guide a look.
Absolutely. But if you aren't looking to do something that's enterprise level and you want to do the mixed use development, that is very easy to set up inside the traditional path of an economic impact analysis inside IMPLAN too. So if you want more information on how to do that, feel free to reach out to your CSM at support@implan.com and they will be happy to help you walk through that as well. All right, how about this one? Does the household impact refer to the impacts on the households who will live in this new construction area? Dana, do you want that or you want me to take it?
My quick 2-second blurb would be yes, but I'll let you expound, Candy, with far more precision.
Yes, that is exactly right. So we want to look at the new money that's coming into the region. That's always the key. So me moving from one street to another street within the same region isn't creating any real economic impact. But people who are moving from outside of the region, that's where the real economic impact is. So we want to look at just those new people coming into the region. That's the true economic impact of the project. All right. Uh-oh, I think you misunderstood my question. You picked single family residential construction. If you have multifamily in your mixed use development, what code do you use? I did definitely misunderstand you, Judy, and I am so sorry about that. Multifamily is its own code, and off the top of my head, I do not have it.
I believe that was the 58 that we selected.
58 is construction of new multifamily residential structures. So, Judy, hopefully that answers your question. If not, poke me and we will get to what you are really looking for. All right, here's one for us. What if we know what businesses are going into the building? How would we add those into the mixed use building report?
So that's actually not something that we entertain today. But if you wanted to look at something that would sort of be the stopgap, I would look at the construction and operations guide because it's specifically going to address the I would say the more business focused aspects of that. And then we could have you reach out to a CSM to kind of see how we would want to add those impacts together. Candy, anything off base there?
No, and absolutely, if this is something that you have more detailed information and those guides allow you to have, again, reaching out to your customer success manager at support@implan.com, they can help you walk through what that is going to be. All right, next question. When I was thinking mixed use, I was thinking housing and say retail space at ground level. Is it possible to model this? And then we have the next question. This is mostly for capturing the housing side. Yes, this is mostly for capturing the housing side at this point. Daniel, do you have any insights on next steps for this?
Yeah, I think we're probably looking to merge a solution like this with the existing construction and operations guide to get that holistic picture. And again, if that's something that you're interested in, I would really love to hear from you at product@implan.com, because that really helps us kind of rearrange the roadmap to see where folks are finding the most traction with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions coming in that this is just looking at the construction and not really looking at it by different types. So that seems to be a big theme we're seeing here, Daniel.
We
All right. How about if we also have annual operations? For example, construction development that includes apartments, groceries, restaurants. Do we need to model operations separately? Yes, we always want to model construction and operations separately. And the reason is that construction, they come and go. Once the building is built, they're out of there. However, the operations of that place, operating the grocery store, whatever offices may be there, restaurants, et cetera, we hope those will be ongoing. So if we model those separately, we can talk about the construction impacts as being that one-time hit to the economy, while the operations will become a part of the economy moving forward. All right, do you have any, oops, this is scrolling too fast. Do you have any suggested language to note there will be negative impacts of new residents as well? Well, that's a very complicated question. The impacts that we do have would show you the environmental impacts. However, no impacts on anything outside of that that would negatively affect folks that are already in the region, like perhaps competition for jobs, congestion of roads, and things like that. But we do have the associated environmental things that will show the additional greenhouse gases and land use, water use, and things like that. Okay, next. While a lot of people moving into the new development will be moving from elsewhere within the same region, they will be vacating a home that someone else will be moving into. For a region that is experiencing a lot of positive economic immigration, wouldn't it be likely that on net, this would represent a new resident to the region? Yeah, Robert, if you have that kind of information, you can go ahead and count those residents as new. What we do want to consider, however, there is the filtering. So as new residents come in, they might be taking lower end apartment buildings, they might be taking in higher apartment buildings. So looking at where your construction fits into that and seeing where those new migrants to your region are coming from and where they're most likely to take the housing is going to be important. But absolutely, if you're in a growing area and they can't build apartments and houses fast enough, then absolutely that's something to consider. Next, oftentimes for mixed use projects, the type of commercial use is not known. What is the best input event to try and capture a range of commercial uses? Okay, Brody, do you mean in terms of the operations or the construction? Um, for construction, we can eliminate a few. We would assume it's not education, it's not a hospital, and it's probably not manufacturing. So we'd end up with something along the lines of office or retail, which would be where I would generally pick if I had to choose one. Talking about a mixed use development, just looking at those developments that we see around us and what kind of tenants they have inside. Um, in terms of operations, it would be really hard to model operations of something that didn't open yet, that we didn't know was opening. For example, if we know it's a restaurant, we can model it as a restaurant, not knowing what kind of restaurant it's going to be. But until we have some kind of idea, we probably shouldn't model anything because an office use is going to be super different than a restaurant use. All right. Penny, going back to your question on the costs associated with it for negative impacts, she followed up and said, I should say public costs rather than negative impacts. So it will show us the tax revenue generated, but not a new tax burden that would be associated with it with new residents that are coming in. So it will show what the region is gaining, but again, not what they are giving up, so to speak, or having to add in terms of additional services and things like that. All right, Judy, when modeling the household spending and operational impacts, you need to be careful about double counting. Household spending is also accounted for retail sales and operations. That's absolutely true, Judy. And that's a great follow on to why we don't want to model too much of that household spending as new, because we'd have to take out a bunch of that spending, assuming that the new folks who move in are very likely to be patronizing the businesses in this mixed use development. It's probably the most likely spot they're going to grab a coffee or anything else. So that's a great point. Thank you, Judy. How does the model take into effect the impact of one business on another, both positive? Input-output by its very nature is a static model, so it is not going to take that into account. It has no limitations also, so there's not going to be anything within the model that says we have run out of dollars to be spent on restaurants, so you can't build a restaurant here. That's just not inherent in input-output and the assumptions with the model. So where we would see how those relationships change is with the new year. When that data, when this mixed use development becomes a part of the actual data set, then we see those relationships as they really stand on the ground. Both positive and negative, Jill. Okay, I think I have answered all of the questions. Daniel, Michael, did I miss any, or anyone from the audience have a question? Can we see any hands raised in there?
Hey, Candy, it looks like we have Tom who has his hand raised. If you'd like, I can go ahead and
Tom, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I don't think so.
Tom, is that you? All right, it seems as though perhaps Tom did not have a question.
I guess not. I believe we had Catherine. Yes.
Hi all, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay, Candy?
Sure can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I wanted to follow up on a question that you answered just a second ago, and I wasn't sure how to type it in correctly with asking. So we get a lot of requests for mixed use developments like this for analysis. And one of the things that we've struggled with is one of the things a couple of people have brought up, which is if we need, we're looking at also the restaurant and the quick service store and all the things within that. So if I'm understanding correctly, if I wanted to do a large mixed use development entire project on all of the aspects going in, I can do the residential in what Daniel just showed us. Mm-hmm. And then I can do everything else in a traditional impact analysis. Like I could do the restaurant in one, I can do the convenience store in one, I could do let's say there's going to be a med spa or something. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. But you wouldn't have to use the guide for something like that either.
Right. We could just do it a traditional way.
We could set it up pretty easily the traditional way. That way they're all in one project for you as well.
That was my question. Okay. So we could set it up in a traditional way and so that they're all in one project so that we're not having to create and then trying to add together 4 or 5 different projects.
You got it. And that's what I was trying to understand. Yeah. When you have that kind of detailed information, that is when we're going to want to be in that more traditional route because you know so much about it. We want to make sure to capture all the nuances of those things.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And would you say that there is a minimum amount of information we would need to have to do that? Like if I know that they're spending I'll give you the example that Daniel used. I know they're spending 10 million to build the entire project, less the residential. So they're doing 10 million on the residential, they're doing 10 million on the rest of it. In that case, would you say, you know, we need a minimum of this amount of information to be able to do this? So let's say there's a med spa and a convenience store and a restaurant, and I know that 10 million is being spent to build all three of those that will be attached to the multifamily residential. But I don't have it broken down by each individual entity, business.
Yeah, I see what
We
you're
would
saying.
have to have quite, do you see what I'm trying to say? We'd have to
Yeah.
have a significant amount of information. Is that accurate?
That is true. And I would recommend looking at a similar place to see how big on average are these med spas and how big on average are the other spots that are going to be in the retail, and then come up with a split in terms of percentage of that $10 million.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, of course. Anyone else has a question? Feel free to just unmute yourself and pop in. All right. Well, Daniel, I think that takes care of it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for fielding those, Candy. And for folks following along at home, obviously, you know, the operational portions of these kind of overlap with other guides that we have, but heard loud and clear on looking at adding some additional portions to this that would address some of the operational measurement that we'd like to do in addition to the housing portions for mixed use development. So excited to see y'all in a few months and maybe unveil something like that.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And if you have questions after this, please email support@implan.com and we'll be happy to help you through any of those. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks.